I've been a software developer for the last 9 years, and if someone had told me these few things before I started, it would have saved me years of wasted time. I learned this through painful trial and error, and they're mistakes that I still see people make over and over again. The first thing is, there is no meaning behind a single rejection. Over the last few years, I've been on both sides of the table. As the interviewee, and at other times, I've been a part of the hiring committee. There were so many times where I felt like I absolutely crushed an interview, only to receive a generic rejection a few hours later. And I know so many of you have had this experience as well. It sends you down this spiral where you play back the interviews over and over in your head, thinking about and overanalyzing every single detail. Did I talk too much? Not enough? Was it my outfit? The truth is, it was probably none of those things, and ruminating over the rejection is only going to waste your time. Now, I'm not saying to never reflect on what you could have done better, and if it's a pattern of always getting rejected at a certain stage, then it's absolutely worth your time to work on your weak points. What I'm saying is that there are so many things that depend on luck when it comes to finding a job that it's easy to put too much meaning behind a single rejection. When I was part of the hiring committee for certain roles, I would hear reasons for rejecting a candidate that I personally strongly disagreed with. For example, I've seen candidates being rejected for being too extroverted and bubbly, and the hiring manager simply thought that she was just going to be too annoying to work with. I've also seen candidates get penalized for asking about the work from home situation and work-life balance. Now, does this mean that you should change something about yourself and that you should stop asking about work-life balance? Absolutely not. Don't ever gaslight yourself into thinking you did something wrong when it's simply a mismatch between what they perceived you could offer and what they're looking for. There's no reason to put a lot of stock and meaning behind a single data point. Second, stop saying that coworkers aren't your friends. All right, on its face, maybe this is true, but the whole notion of
I'm just here to get my bag and leave
is not going to help you in the long run. As much as I hate that this is the case, your ability to succeed at work depends a lot on how much other people like you. In fact, Steve from A Life Engineered recently said that it's better to be liked than good. Humans are extremely subjective and biased, and this is true at work as well. We don't make decisions and judgments based on logic alone. Your relationship with people is the single most important factor when it comes to how lenient they are with you when you make a mistake. It also determines whether or not people are going to stick up for you when you get thrown under the bus. I've seen two people make almost identical mistakes at the same company. When the first person made that mistake, they got called out in a meeting. But when the second person made that exact mistake, it pretty much went completely ignored. The only difference was how likable they were. This pattern plays out everywhere in life, whether it's work, school, or in friend groups. Your emotional connection with someone heavily influences how you perceive their actions. That's just human nature, and I'm like that as well. I'm not saying you have to be besties with everyone, but having friends at work not only makes it a lot more tolerable, but can actually be a strategic advantage. Next, I know I've said this before, but I think it's worth mentioning again because it is such a time sink. Go deep with a programming language before you go wider. Your time is so much better spent investing in learning the principles rather than just syntax of a bunch of different languages. But if you're trying to pick a first programming language to learn, I would personally choose Python. It has quickly become the most popular programming language, and it's going to give you a huge leg up when you're looking for a job. In addition, it's also super beginner friendly and has a wide range of learning resources. To get started with Python and programming principles, I recommend you check out this absolutely free resource guide on Python developed by HubSpot. It provides a clear, approachable introduction to Python's core concepts. It introduces things like functions, data types, loops, and object-oriented programming while using simple language and practical examples to help you nail down the fundamentals. It also breaks down Python's syntax and structure, helping you build confidence and write your first script. My favorite section is the one on coding standards and best practices, as a lot of these standards can be applied across all programming languages. There's even a great section on popular and high-quality learning resources if you want to go deeper with Python. Thank you so much, HubSpot, for putting this resource together and making it available to my audience and for sponsoring this video. Have a look for yourself by clicking the link in the description below. Next, your work will not speak for itself. One of the biggest lies I was told growing up is that you should never promote yourself or boast, and eventually other people will start to notice your work ethic. That is complete nonsense. I hear this scenario all the time. You spend years working heads down, staying quiet, and hoping that one day someone's gonna notice that you're the reliable one, the one that's always refactoring the code base and doing the grunt work. But when it comes to promotions, it's always the less experienced, less competent guy that talks the most that ends up getting them. It's really common for fast-growing startups to spend around 30 to 50% of their operating budget on marketing costs alone. Let that sink in for a minute. It's not spent on R&D or making the product better. It's spent on Google Ads and promoting themselves. The same principle should apply to your own life. You think that to get a promotion, you simply need to do more work or better work, but that's not always the case. In fact, a more effective strategy would be to combine that with advocating for yourself and making sure that other people can see the work that you've done. For example, one thing that you can start with is keeping a detailed log of all the things that you accomplished and make sure that it's visible to others, whether you bring it up during a one-on-one or in a public Slack channel. Another related strategy is to figure out what the high visibility projects are and kind of try to get yourself onto that project, which brings me to my next point. This next one's a little controversial, but your manager's priorities take precedence over what you think is best for the company. I honestly wasn't sure whether or not to include this point, but I really want to be radically transparent with you guys. What your boss wants you to do and what you believe is best for the company don't necessarily overlap. Ideally they do, but so often they don't. It reminds me of hairstylists and their clients. A lot of the times, clients will ask for services that the stylist knows won't be good long term, whether it's bleaching that is going to be damaging to their hair or, a cut that the stylist knows is not going to look good on that client. You, as the stylist, can make it clear that it's not recommended, but at the end of the day, it's her hair and your job is to make her happy if you want to keep her as a client. I noticed that the same thing sort of applies when it comes to tech. One of the fastest ways to advance is to really understand what it is that your manager prioritizes. There was a time where I strongly believed we should be prioritizing critical features that I know would make our application more user-friendly. But instead, the project manager just got drunk on the AI hype and just kept pushing us to add AI to random places in the application that literally nobody asked for. I knew deep down that this was a massive waste of time and would actually degrade user experience, and I brought it up on several occasions, but was ultimately ignored. In fact, I could kind of feel the resentment from my engineering manager and PM for constantly pushing this issue because now I looked like I wasn't a team player. So I finally gave in and I added in those AI integrations. As expected, none of the users really gave a crap, and it added a ton of unnecessary technical debt. But I got a lot of accolades and recognition from my stakeholders and my boss. At the end of the day, they didn't care about refactoring the code base or reducing technical debt. They just wanted cool AI features that they could show off to the executives. I had another manager that was obsessed with grammatically correct and informative emails. She didn't care that the app we were building was slow and hard to use, but if the emails weren't responded to right away or had these insignificant grammatical errors, she would make sure to point it out and make it into a big deal. Obviously, this is frustrating, but what I realized was that as a new manager, she probably felt like a lot of things were out of her control. And this just gave her a semblance of having a level of control and predictability. And while writing grammatically correct emails obviously doesn't contribute to the success of the company, I think it absolutely made a positive impact on my perceived performance. If you want to succeed in the corporate world, you're gonna have to pay close attention to what your manager values. Maybe he values very well-written emails. Maybe they value a pretty UI at the expense of performance. Ideally, what they value aligns with your goals and the goals of the company, but again, this isn't always the case. And ultimately, what they value should take precedence. I'm not saying to never push back, and ultimately, you should never do anything that compromises your integrity or your morals for a paycheck. What I'm saying is to carefully pick your battles. Most of the time, they're just simply not worth fighting, especially if you don't have seniority. And you know what? You might not even be right. Like, maybe those AI features no one asked for were a great idea all along, and I'm the stupid one. At the end of the day, this isn't your company, and you have more of an obligation to you and your family than you do to the company. And number 5, fear is a mile wide and an inch deep. And you know what? So is your competition. If you're applying for jobs right now, I know how hopeless it can seem. There are MIT grads that can't find their first job, and you're competing with laid-off FANG engineers for the same positions. You go on LinkedIn and you see the job you want to apply for, receive over 1,000 applications within a few hours. Now that I've been on the other side of the table, I can say that our perception of competition is skewed by all the fear-mongering that we see online. I've seen candidates not know how to open an IDE. And in fact, I don't even think they knew what an IDE was. Another candidate didn't know how to print something to the terminal. A big portion of the people that we send interview invites for don't even show up to the interview. The reason why people are still asking FizzBuzz questions in an interview is because a huge amount of applicants do fail them. With the rise of AI, it's really never been easier to beat the average person. We all know that the average college graduate these days has had their attention span completely shot by social media, and they're just too distracted by cheap dopamine to be able to spend hours trying to solve a LeetCode problem. Only a few of them are able to tolerate the boredom and frustration of mastering systems design. The ability to focus for hours at a time and be able to tolerate this discomfort and frustration is becoming more and more rare of a skill. If you have this ability, you're a lot more qualified and valuable than you think you are. These are just a few of the things that I realized over the last decade of being in tech and what I wish I could go back and tell myself. I know some of you might totally disagree with a lot of the things that I said, and that's completely fine. Let me know in the comments below, and as always, I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.